In this era of deep complexity,
He's a friend of CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility.
beyond the edges of black or white,
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing!
it's time to be notionally accurate.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping.
Here are your hosts, Captain Kirk and some guy named Jason.
Welcome one and all to the 24th episode of the Notionally Accurate podcast. Produced live right here at the One Man's Burden Studios, my undisclosed compound, located in the crimson fjords of the Mojave Mirage. My name is Captain Kirk, and I'll be your affable host. Trump's first 100 days. I'd say overall a 7, but that 7 includes so many great policies, from energy policy to immigration policy. A lot of these executive orders are absolutely fantastic. However, I am still concerned not about the Epstein list or the JFK files or anything like that. No, what I'm concerned about is that the Congress is not going to codify these policies into legislation. And so we'll be stuck with great executive orders that can be easily overturned. God forbid a Democrat wins in 2028. So far, no sign of Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, a combination of tax rate reductions and deregulation and efforts to bolster the economy beyond mere tariffs. My co-host, some guy named Jason, and I talk about the Wisconsin judge, Heather Duggan, who was arrested for assisting an illegal immigrant from ICE custody inside of her own courtroom. Well, I have an update to that since we had recorded that discussion this past Sunday. The Wisconsin Supreme Court, which is liberal at this point, upheld on their own accord, upheld a temporary administrative leave for the esteemed justice of the court, pending the trial and potential conviction. Now, obviously, she should be totally disbarred and become disgraced persona non grata, but we live in America, and we can't expect miracles. Reportedly, Eagles QB Jalen Hurts, who just recently won a Super Bowl, announced he will not be attending the White House celebration with the team whenever they happen to stop by at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. There's some consternation on both sides. The pro-Hurts people are saying, oh, Donald Trump's this and that, and the pro-Trump people are saying, oh, Jalen Hurts is this and that. Honestly, I couldn't care less. As long as the other teams want to come by, that's fine with me. Let's get along with the pomp and circumstance already. In sadder news, David Horowitz passed away at the age of 86. He'd been battling cancer and finally succumbed to it this week. David Horowitz was a red diaper baby. His parents were communists. He was a communist, at least that's what he thought in the malaise of the 60s and 70s. He had even attended Columbia University. Because, of course, hey, I don't find these connections, okay? These connections find me. But Horowitz had a great awakening, had a great unlearning of his past education, and he became a fierce anti-communist and anti-Marxist.
People on the left, progressives, hate the American Constitution for this reason. It's a constitution about limiting government. It's a constitution that stands up for individual rights. What the progressives want is a constitution that empowers people. You have a right to free medical care. You have a right to a home. Well, of course, that isn't a right. What that is a privilege to take from whomever Nancy Pelosi designates. Take away their taxes to fund your free medical care. Take away their wealth to fund your home, and so forth. These people, I mean, their mentality is, communist. That's what it is. And I know this because I used to read the Daily Worker when I was a kid, and I can tell you that when I read what leftists say, it's exactly what I used to read in the Daily Worker. There's no difference.
He started the Horowitz Freedom Center and helped become part of the bulwark against the Marxists who wish to level us all off under the guise of equity and equality. Rest in peace, David. You'll be missed.
So, Captain Kirk, I know you told me pre-show that, and I quote, if we talk anything about the tariffs, that I could talk about it as much as I want, but you said, and I quote, I will edit it out. I'm not putting it out. I'm tired of tariff talk. So that being said, we won't talk about tariffs, okay? We're not going to talk about how Elon Musk is deluding himself from Doge. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it.
Point of order.
Because you don't want to.
Point of order. I reclaim my time. I should be allowed to at least defend myself before we just brush aside and move on. As you T-bone me with your rhetorical wit and satire. Okay. So yeah, I'm done with the tariff talk. I'm sick of it. I'm bored with it. We spent plenty of time on it, I think. And then we both got what we wanted out of it, even if you could go on for another 5 hours. As far as Doge, I think they need to show me the beef. They need to codify a lot of these cuts in the Congress, and the Congress isn't doing anything. They're useless. That's my view.
So this is us not talking about it. Just quickly not talking about it. We're not going to talk about it the rest of the show because you're sick of it. And I think that might be good for everybody else too. So
yeah, I think so.
Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about something a little bit lighter. Oh yeah, the Pope died.
Oh yeah, about that.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah. So new Pope. What I love about the whole the Pope thing is no one really knows how it works. No one knows how the decision is reached to get the new Pope. No one knows the politics behind the selection of the Pope. Like, what is going on right now in chambers with all those little cardinals? What kind of deals are being made? Is that the kind of thing that happens? It's got to be, right? Or is it more, in theory, holy than backroom deals? But how does this happen? How do they select the Pope? I heard there might be an American Pope.
And who would that be?
I don't know. But
I believe his name is
nice,
Timothy Dolan. Archbishop.
Is his name Timothy Dolan?
I think his name is Timothy Dolan. He's a pretty outspoken member of the clergy. Yeah.
There you go. So, okay. All I'm saying is it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen with the new Pope. And of course, how that affects American politics is that at the Pope's funeral, Trump wore a blue suit, set the world on fire.
Very scandalous.
Why? Why is that so scandalous? It was a dark blue suit. It wasn't like a sky blue suit or like turquoise.
So apparently, I don't know if it was the Pope or the Pope's family had requested before he died that when he had the funeral, anybody that would show up in black, is what I've heard. I guess that was a faux pas, but I saw other people.
It was a personal request.
Blue suits as well. So yeah, it was a personal request. Allegedly, is what I've heard.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah. So Trump just said, to heck with it. I'm going to do what I want, going to the Pope's funeral in my blue suit. How many blue suits do you think he owns? Hundreds.
I'd say about a couple, 300, 400 or so. Just a huge closet full of blue suits.
He's got to. And he couldn't wear a black suit. Actually, if you think about it, have you ever seen Trump in a black suit? I guess he's worn tuxedos. You've seen him in those dinners.
Right, like the Al Smith dinner. That's an interesting point. I have read that Donald Trump does not wear black very often, and the same point you were making is what I've seen swirling around this story. He doesn't really wear black. He wears those blue suits. So that's just kind of his style. I don't know what else to say. But it's burning up the left. I guess they have nothing else to complain about.
Trump is like the weather. It's like the weather. Yeah, if you don't like it, wait around for 15 minutes. Who knows? Like, this is a long haul. But him wearing a blue suit, that's Trump. What are you going to do? I guess if that's the craziest thing he does. Because
I know you're broken up over it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But ironically, and we were just talking about this past week was the White House Correspondence Dinner. And Trump being in a blue suit, or Trump doing this, Trump doing that. We were discussing however many years ago, how many years ago was it? It was almost 16 years ago, 12 years ago, that Trump was at a White House. Ago. Yeah, the White House Correspondence Dinner, and one Barack Obama began to pick on Donald Trump, and he made fun of Donald Trump at that dinner. And had Barack Obama known that he was going to forever change the country, dare I say the world, from this White House Correspondence Dinner. So although to a certain degree, to a very high degree, this dinner and these things are just rich gatherings for the elite and people who live in their own bubble. It changed a few years ago, changed the world.
All he had to do was shut his mouth and make fun of himself like every other presenter would do in that situation. But instead, he was so petty, he used that bully pulpit to smack Trump and say, oh, you know who's not president? You, ha, ha, ha. Well, it came back to bite him in the ass. So as a Trump supporter, I have to say thank you, Mr. Obama, for opening your mouth and motivating Donald Trump to run.
Well, Alex Thompson, he was receiving a award of some sort, way to go kind of thing. And he went up there and in his acceptance speech pretty much said that there's a reason why the American public doesn't trust the corporate media anymore. They're trying to pin it all on the Biden thing, which I think is a little too convenient, because everyone, if anything, everyone could tell what was going on with Biden. And to pin all of our distrust, the public's distrust, on the Biden gate is also insincere.
Very good word. So yeah, the Biden thing was a big gaslight. We were being lied to about it throughout the course of his residency. But you have to really go back and go to things like COVID, the BLM Antifa riots of 2020, further back, Russia, the Charlottesville hoax, all these things that have come down the pike over the past 10 years has really eroded the trust in the mass media. And that's their own fault. It's not like, we snuck in there and put in misinformation and disinformation. No, this was of their own volition.
Of their own making. And the only one where they got their hand caught in the cookie jar because they pressed it too far was the Biden story. That one was an obvious, oh my God, you guys are lying to us. But look at this past week, the White House came out and said it's official that the coronavirus came from China. It is now official. It was a lab leak from China. Has anyone responded, talked about that? Talked about how for the 4 years they promoted it like, it wasn't a leak. It was anything but.
Hey, stop being so racist, okay? It's racist to say that a virus that was genetically modified in a lab in Wuhan that specializes in the genetic mutation of superviruses, having it leak out and kill millions of people, that's racist, okay? What's not racist is saying a Chinaman ate a pangolin at a wet market and contracted the virus, because they're filthy, filthy animals.
What what they're selling, right? The bat's filthy animal. That's what you're referring to, right?
The pangolin.
Okay.
Yeah.
The pangolin. Okay. Because otherwise, that sounds real racist. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yeah, that was kind of the gist of what I was driving at. One's racist, the other one isn't.
But how did but you can't do that and do that for years and years, and then lie, and then now be like, wow, we got caught lying. We got to, we got to change our game now.
Speaking of getting caught lying, Alex Thompson in regard to this Biden situation, has a book coming out with CNN's Jake Tapper, and it's coming out in May, called Original Sin. It's supposed to be like, oh, see, we uncovered the cover up. We are fantastic journalists. But yeah, Alex Thompson was pretty good on this issue. But Jake Tapper, I can throw in a couple of examples of different efforts by him to downplay, mitigate, hand wave away Biden's obvious cognitive decline. So it's, as you would say, insincere.
There's no way you have sound clips of Jake Tapper defending Biden. No way.
Oh yeah, there's just no possibility there's any in my archive. No.
There's a lot of people are paying attention to his age and concerned about his age. I've been covering him for 25 years, and This is a guy who, even when he was youngish, was gaffe prone and long-winded, and even then
he was in his 50s.
Right, even then it would be like an open question, can he get through an hour speech without stepping in it? And now he's 81. But last year he had a really good moment, actually. Last year he had a moment where somebody heckled him on Social Security. He was saying the Republicans were going to raise or cut Social Security and Medicare, and they booed him, and he said, so he did a pivot, you agree with me now, great, we're making progress, something like that.
Oh, that's good.
So he had a moment.
This is when we pause for you to play all the cuts.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
you are
to watch somebody on stage
that's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive decline.
That Joe Biden
I have one last question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay,
that is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel sorry for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it.
Jake Tapper, that's hilarious. So what's funny about the whole thing is that they all know, right? So they all knew, and then they all kind of had some sort of standoff where they all looked at each other to see who was going to be the first one to write the book. And whoever get the book out first, those are the ones who are going to capitalize, because they're the ones who are showing the actual truth to the Joe Biden mental health situation that everyone else was just ignoring. But I'm standing for truth. No, you were just the first one to get the book printed. That way you get the most, you get the money first.
Having listened to multiple times the book Fight by Martin and Parnes, everyone knew. Everyone was aware. They provided him special stairs to get up the steps to Air Force One. They provided him special sneakers in order to assist in his gait. His feet were apparently on fire due to this issue he had passed along from his father that made walking very difficult. So that's apparently why he had that slow, meandering gait to him, the way he walked. Alex Thompson, to his credit, had reported on the president, quote unquote, the White House resident, asking his advisors and aides to walk like a curtain around him as he crossed from disembarking Air Force One to the White House. So to his credit, he has done that. I just wanted to make sure that the difference is clear, that Tapper, not very good on this. Thompson, pretty decent. I do recommend reading Fight rather than whatever is about to come out. I think it does a lot better explaining the decisions being made. Everybody knew.
And it's also outside of the big moments. You know, him farting in front of the Duchess of York or whatever in England, him doing like these small things that you would see daily.
In front of the Pope.
And it got to the point where they didn't.
Speaking of the Pope.
Yeah. Every time they put him on camera, he would do something that you're just like, he would do something stupid or weird, or so they really, really limited his time on camera.
The Easter Bunny. Donald Trump joked about, isn't it great not to have a president that's directed by somebody in a Easter Bunny costume? He's absolutely right. As horrifying as that was, it'll also be
the bicycle
not hilarious. The falling off the bike, tripping over the sandbag at the academy.
I mean, yeah. And so like they're pointing out how, we didn't know and they were hiding this. They weren't hiding anything. It's just what you were willing to report. We all could see it. I live in the suburbs in Denver, Colorado. I could see it. I'm not even on the inside. Everybody knew. It's just a matter of, do we as the institution want to put up with it? If we are still going to, if we're going to back Biden, then people will back Biden. But if we don't back Biden, Biden's toast. And they knew that, because once the machine that they have built that they were trying to take Trump down with, once that turned on Biden, it was over.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. It's very interesting to see. Yeah.
We have to thank the impulsive nature of Donald Trump accepting that early debate in late June 2024, taking that debate, going with the rules, even if it wasn't a friendly network. He went on it and assisted in the demolition of a sitting White House resident in such a spectacular fashion that he couldn't even survive 3 weeks. And the book Fight talks about the Stephanopoulos interview. Only talks about 1 or 2 moments. They could have gone on and on. Talked about going on like a local PBS with a black journalist and making a fool of himself. They could have pointed out multiple occasions of him flubbing. They do 1 or 2. If they did all the flubs and all the gaffes and all the mistakes and everything, that book would have been 10 times longer.
And everyone makes gaffes and flubs and makes mistakes. Everyone does that. Especially every public figure is going to have their moment, where their moments, probably multiple moments of doing something stupid. But you can tell when it's different. Like you can tell when it looks like, Grandpa, it's almost sunset and Grandpa's getting a little squirrely. It's different. It's different from mistaking people. Like how many times did he want dead people to rise in the house when he was like, and calling people out who've been dead for 4 years, and he's like, go ahead and rise and get and like, she's dead. And like, oh geez, he was doing weird things for years, like years and years. So now that they're trying to be honest, like, give me a break.
Right, exactly. I remember he called out for Jackie Walorski, who had passed away a couple months earlier. And he had allegedly, I guess it was via the auto pen, signed a letter of condolences to the Walorski family after the loss of their matriarch. And then he calls her out, "Where's Jackie? Hey, where's Jackie?" And then when it's pointed out, she's dead. Oh, well, okay, let's have somebody else come up. And I was thinking of her mother and grandmother or whatever. And then Karine Jean-Pierre, the first gay black immigrant press secretary from Colombia, said, Walorski was top of mind. Top of mind. She was on the top of mind for Biden, which is just the lamest excuse ever.
It's been a minute since you have said Jean-Pierre's full title. I appreciate that.
She is historic, so I have to put respect on that name.
So my question, Alex Alex Thompson points out that no one trusts corporate America. Or corporate media. So my thought is, do you think corporate media can bounce back? And if they do, how?
I really don't know. I don't know. I think they're a rudderless ship right now, at least in the Trump era. They might be able to cobble something together once he leaves the office, but we're looking 4 years into the future. I don't know if a rebound is foreseeable. I just don't.
Well, to a certain degree, it's almost a form of Darwinism, where the evolution of the internet is now taking them over, and they can't keep up with the internet anymore. Trump is the tool that they use so that they can't control the internet. Trump was like, no, you can't do that. Elon Musk, like buying X, was them like, no, you can't take over the internet. You can't control the internet. And so now that they can't control the internet, there's no way they can compete with it. You can't compete with the internet. You can't compete with one show at 6 o'clock at night every night is not going to compete with, 500 podcasts. It's just not going to work that way. So they have to figure out a whole new model, a whole new system in order for A, for us to trust them, and B, in order for them to actually be dominant.
Are they so in the bubble that they'll be like Skinner from The Simpsons when he asks, am I the problem? No, my critics are the problem. And I think that's what we're seeing with the media folks, is that they're so in the bubble, they think the people that don't trust them anymore are the problem. And it's predictable.
Well, and that's also why this past week, Tim Pool asking the first question, that was a big deal. That was a really big deal because it's showing that the winds of change are blowing and they're about to get swept away.
So the White House has done a great maneuver in allowing more voices to enter the press room at the White House. And one of those lucky individuals that are credentialed now is Tim Pool. And I have no problem with it. I don't care if they would even bring in some of the more left-wing entities either.
No,
who cares?
They should.
Let them ask their questions.
Yeah.
Because Caroline Leavitt is fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, she's great. No, she's great. And yeah, I know a couple divorcees who have big crushes on her right now. If she was, I don't think she's available, but no, I think they should open it up to anyone, like to a liberal podcast or whatever. It has to show that the institution, you can't control it anymore. You can't control the media. You can't, because what's weird is it's not state-run media, it's corporate-run media. So my thought is, if all of these, if Big Pharma has all this money and corporate media is not cutting the mustard anymore, are they going to start putting all their money into internet and podcasts? Because brought to you by Pfizer, I don't know if that's going to carry the same weight as it used to.
Yeah, that's local news fodder advertisement right there. I don't think it'll sell well on the podcast circuit.
So how do you think, is this going to affect their bottom line? Because once the
Pfizer,
once the baby boomers die off, everything's going to change. Because no one's going to be watching. Everyone's going to be cutting the cord. No one's watching the 3-letter stations anymore. They have to say good things about Trump too. They'll never do that.
Because their viewership, which is mostly liberal, though some conservatives, would abandon them if they said anything good about Trump. And the more conservative side that would then gravitate towards watching them is already so put off by the last 5-10 years of just constant beating over the head of the fake news. I don't know if they'd come back, as it were.
I think it's all for the baby boomers. Once they're gone, no, yep, they won't. No one's gonna be watching it anymore. But that's what, honestly, to me, I don't know what's more frustrating: finding out that you were being lied to, or trying to find the truth. Because now I don't trust anything. Like, I don't trust any news source. And by trust, they may not necessarily be lying, but they are spinning it. And a lot of times you can hear the report of one situation 3 different ways, and it sounds completely different all 3 ways.
Dilbert creator Scott Adams has a interesting paradigm where he'll say you're watching the same movie, but getting two different views out of it. And I think that is what we're dealing with, where there's just so many perspectives, which isn't a bad thing, but it's trying to reach the truth of anything is damn near impossible with all these clacking hens chirping into the wind.
Perfect example is the Maryland Man.
Marilyn Manson.
Every
Beautiful
time.
people.
Every time. Well, what if Marilyn Manson went to a funeral and they told him, okay, listen, we don't want you to wear black. We want you to wear yellow. And Marilyn Manson showed up wearing black. You know why? He always wears black. I can't see Marilyn Manson in yellow.
Type of style.
He probably did wear yellow at one point.
Right.
Anyway, the Maryland Man, there's so many different
Moving
layers moving on. There's so many different layers of information, because at first it was, oh my God, this man was deported while he was reading nighttime stories to his kids and planning for their future because he wants to work really hard and he believes in the American dream, to, oh my God, this guy was really horrible. Get rid of him. Who cares? Send him to El Salvador. He deserves it. To, wait a minute. There is a whole law here that the Trump administration might have broke by doing this. You got to bring him back and do it the right way. And I don't know. And you were saying that last part. I've heard that part wrong. But there's so many things happening with this, where he was actually illegal. He was signed up for deportation, and he was a father. So these things are true.
He was a man, is a man. So that's also true. So right. I give them all that credit for getting that correct. So two things about this Abrego Garcia case is just driving me insane. Listening to the pundits and the talking heads, especially on the left, that say, oh my goodness, he was wrongfully deported. No, he was slated for deportation. He was just not supposed to go to El Salvador. Well, why was he barred from going to El Salvador, from being deported there? It's because he feared retaliation as a member of MS-13, the rival gang that at the time existed in El Salvador, Barrio 18. This was a gang turf war situation. What the Supreme Court said, not that you have to physically bring him back and personally have Trump fly Trump Force One down there to CCOT and break him out. It was to facilitate. It was to make an effort. It wasn't to absolutely, if you don't bring him back, you're breaking a law. Well, what law is being broken? It's just the injunction that was placed upon him 6 years ago, that you can't be deported to El Salvador. I mean, he could have been deported anywhere else, and we're supposed to believe that they wouldn't be making a big deal about this. Chris Van Hollen goes down there, has margaritas with him, and comes back and talks about how great Abrego Garcia is. And that, oh no, it's not about the illegal immigrant. It's about the process. Well, he received due process. 2 different magistrates, 2 different judges determined that the government has proven he was a member of MS-13. According to documents that have come out, his current wife, which now supports him, alleged that he was a member of MS-13 and assaulted her. Well, I'm sorry he's in CCOT. He's going to be staying there.
So no process. So he got due process. Nothing was broken here, other than what?
The judge's injunction of his deportation to El Salvador was violated, but dollars to donuts, you bring him back here, he's going to get deported again. So he's already had the due process, and that was the 2 deportation hearings, the latest in 2019, that said, okay, see ya.
Right. Well, and him coming back, that's not realistic. That's stupid. You're not going to bring back an illegal alien just to deport him again. So him coming back, this whole situation is screwed up. I don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to fix it, but he's gone. Like, he's gone. what makes me nervous, obviously, is the ability to for the executive branch, because what the Democrats are feeling right now is they've built all this stuff, and now Trump is just using all of the levers the Democrats have put into place. Well, if Trump does stuff like this, I don't want to get to a point where the executive branch has the power to ship people off. And that makes me nervous. And of course, Trump, in his classic de-escalating way, says that he wants to ship out homegrown criminals too. And that's not, like, what are you talking about? That's not what anybody wants. I don't know. It makes me nervous, and I can see why due process is important.
Well. Soft on crime, Jason. That's going to be your new nickname. Soft on crime.
I didn't say
Jason.
that. I'm not soft on crime. I'm not soft. I'm
not even willing to deport
I'm hard
domestic
on crime.
terrorists.
I'm hard. No, I am. But I just want to do it. I just want to make sure. I mean, just do it the right way. Is all. That's all I'm saying. Like, get like there's you.
You just want the democratic process.
Well, the way you said democratic, I could feel the sarcasm. So, yes and no. How about that? How about that for an answer? Yes and no on the democratic process.
It was exactly as wishy-washy as I expected. So, I thank you for that.
Well, I'm not like the Wisconsin judge Hannah Duggan. That whole situation is crazy.
What a wonderful woman. What did she do?
The name of the defendant hasn't come out yet, but he was an illegal alien in, I guess, 2 misdemeanors or 3 misdemeanors that he was in court for. ICE found out this gentleman was going to be in court for these things. They show up. They stand outside the courtroom ready for him to come out of the courtroom. ICE was then going to arrest him. The judge finds out that ICE is in the courtroom, or in the court area, I guess, the court lobby. So she instructs the defendant, unnamed illegal alien, to go out to the exit where the jury comes in. And so the defendant leaves out of the courtroom in a different way, instructed by the judge. ICE finds out about it. A small foot chase pursuit ensued. Cops catch him, and they arrest the judge. The left is saying this is obviously an overreach by the executive branch. You can't do this. And the right is saying she was harboring and abetting an illegal alien. So that is so she will face, I guess, next week will be her arraignment, I suppose. But the fact that that was her impulse is amazing.
So with the reaction by the media, again, we can't take anything they say seriously. They always leave out that what was she doing? And of course, it was harboring an illegal immigrant, Wando. So it's kind of her fault. And
yeah, that was good.
Like that.
Wando. That's funny. Anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just another example of these bleeding heart liberals. Oh, I care so much about immigration and the wretched refuse of the broader world, and it's all the emotional blackmail that they keep heaping on, and I'm not impressed with it. I'm sure that you think that the judge deserves due process, right? Before she got arrested?
Yeah, well, yes. I think what the judge did is the judge got into the way. She impeded due process because the gentleman was signed up to get deported. So the process was he was going to get deported. So for her to get in the way there, she's stopping due process. All I'm saying is I want to make sure that there's a process here. Either A, that's effective, and B, that it can't be manipulated, and it can't be easily gummed up by rogue judges who let people out the back door.
There are some 30 to 40 million illegal immigrants in this country. Trump is trying to get rid of them. And we're supposed to have a weeks to months to years long hearing for each illegal immigrant, the immigration courts are already overwhelmed. There's a gigantic backlog. And even though he's been able to turn off the spigot, that is the southern border, there's still the factors of the illegals that are here. I don't know what he's supposed to do. There was no vetting of them as they entered, but each one needs to be vetted and coddled and protected before they get shipped out again, which would be the most humane thing to do, rather than keep them here and have them be exploited in one fashion or another.
Well, now that my life has changed, bro, my life has changed. There was my life before, and then there was my life after. You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about BK and then AK? Before Katie and after Katie?
Yeah, dude. Katy Perry and a bunch of rich women went to space, and we're supposed to be impressed.
Woohoo.
What I love about this story, though, is not the fact that Katy Perry went to space, not the fact that Katy Perry used the whole thing for a photo op, and not the fact that she looked like a big doofus. They all kind of look like a big doofus. What I love about it is people's response to it. And it really shows how our society is now looking at things and digesting things post-pandemic. Because our bullshit limit, it's real low. You know, and if you're bullshitting the public now and we can tell it's a photo op, no one likes that. No one likes that anymore. No one's falling for it anymore.
I just love the whole, I'm an astronaut, look at me. I'm just like John Glenn or Buzz Aldrin. Look how special I am.
11 minutes.
And then, I don't know if you saw that whole 11 minutes inside of a rocket ship that looked suspiciously phallic. The memes on that were hilarious. The interspersing of one of the Austin Power movies of, you know, look at that giant Johnson, you know,
right.
Whatever the.
It wasn't suspiciously phallic. It wasn't suspiciously phallic. It was suspiciously incredibly phallic. It wasn't like it was incredibly phallic.
Conspicuously phallic. And I'm sure you had seen one of the passengers. I don't remember what her name was. She's lost to history in my regard. Who was on like CBS Early Morning or something like that. And one of the hosts had the audacity to say, you know, big step for mankind. She stopped the interview and said, no, humankind. And she's like, oh my God, these people, all of them appear to be very insufferable.
It would be horrible. Could you imagine being stuck in space with Katy Perry?
Even for 11 minutes just seems way too long.
That would be absolutely horrible.
It's a fate worse than death.
Well, and those astronauts that were stuck at the space station, they were up there for 288 days, right?
Correct.
Wow. And I guarantee you they didn't have energy enough to get down and kiss the ground. They probably just tipped they tipped the capsule that came in. They just kind of poured out of the capsule. Wow. But congratulations. I for one, am really proud that once again, very wealthy people can do really fun things. That's what I really am impressed by.
It is one of the most seminal moments in your life, of course. You know, when you'll be looking back 20 years from now as an older man telling your grandkids, I was there when Katy Perry flew kind of near the orbit around it for 11 minutes.
Yep. And they'll say, who's Katy Perry? And I'll say, I forgot. I think I went to junior high with her. Stole my juice box. I think. Well done, Katie. We're all proud of you.
Anyway, thanks for listening to episode 24 of Notionally Accurate. Thank you to some guy named Jason for joining me on this one. I'm your host, Captain Kirk. More to come on future episodes. Find this podcast on SoundCloud, Rumble, and YouTube. Follow the podcast on Twitter/X at NotionallyACC. That's at NotionallyACC. Email me at notionallyaccurate@protonmail.com. Notionallyaccurate@protonmail.com. Take care, and remember, even if you can't be factually correct, you can always be notionally accurate.